Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
It's the 4th of March 2014. A very good evening to you and welcome to your News at 9, come to you live from the Newsfirst Center here in Colombo. And I'm Joel Outskun with tonight's headlines. Starting off with, a draft resolution on Sri Lanka circulated at the 25th regular session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Terrorism wherever the world, in whatever form or manifestation, is a threat to the collective security of the nations. A statement by the President on the opening day of the BIMSTEC Summit in Myanmar. A jewelry shop in Nugegoda robbed, over 1 million looted. Meanwhile, the Minister of Wildlife says that there are flaws in the license pertaining to the elephant calf in Mirugama. Also making headlines, Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow reserves the right to use all options in Ukraine. Let's now cross over to our Newsfirst studios for a comprehensive news bulletin.
Good evening and welcome. You're with Newsfirst, your number one news provider. I'm Shamir Rasooli.
And I'm Nicola D'Zoiza. Let's start off with tonight's top story.
Let me go straight ahead to the situation in Ukraine, where the country is on the brink of war. An alleged ultimatum for Ukrainian forces to surrender, denied by Moscow, expired without an incident today. Speaking a few hours after the lapse of the deadline, Russian President Vladimir Putin said there is no need yet to send Russian troops into Ukraine. Putin, however, noted that Russia reserves the right to use all means to protect citizens in the east of the country. Addressing a group of journalists, Putin denied troops had besieged Ukrainians based in Crimea and added they were pro-Russian self-defense forces.
What can be a reason to use the armed forces? This is of course the last resort, simply the last resort. If we see that lawlessness starting in eastern regions too, if people ask us for help and we have already an official address from the current legitimate president, we reserve the right to use all options at our disposal to protect those citizens. The possibility to deploy troops is there. But I would like to say that the army drills that we had recently were not anyhow related to the events in Ukraine. This was an event planned by us long ago. We just naturally did not announce it.
The practice maneuvers, which included live fire exercises and involved more than 150,000 servicemen, up to 90 planes, over 120 helicopters, more than 800 military vehicles and 80 warships, as tensions over the situation in Ukraine escalated. Russia's upper house of parliament approved the use of armed forces in Ukraine, which shares a long land border with Russia, over the weekend, prompting world leaders to condemn Moscow's armed incursion as an invasion and call for economic sanctions. A tensed standoff was reported over the weekend between Ukrainian soldiers loyal to Kiev and Russian commandos at the Perivalnia military base in Ukraine's Crimea region. This footage was recorded by French news agency France 24, and the base was surrounded by at least 100 heavily armed commandos who admitted they were Russian. They were watched by Ukrainian soldiers who remained behind the barracks' closed gates. Meanwhile, 2 Russian landing warships passed through Turkey's Bosphorus on their way to the Black Sea port of Sevastopol after Russia withdrew them from its navy's operations in the eastern Mediterranean. Soldiers believed to be Russian have been filmed as they patrol the streets of the Crimean administrative center, Simferopol. The video shows uniformed soldiers carrying automatic guns patrolling the streets of the city. Russian forces have already bloodlessly seized Crimea, an isolated Black Sea peninsula where Moscow has a naval base. The seizure of Crimea has created the greatest confrontation between Russia and the West since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Meanwhile, Moscow's envoy to the UN said that Ukraine's ousted leader Viktor Yanukovych has sent a letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin requesting that he use the Russian military to restore law and order in Ukraine.
Сегодня я уполномочен сообщить также следующее.
Madam President, today I am also authorized to say the following. The President of Russia has received the following from President Yanukovych, and I quote, the statements of the President of Ukraine. As a legitimately elected representative, I say that the events in my place and the events in Kiev have resulted in the fact that Ukraine is on the brink of a civil war. In the country, there is chaos and anarchy. The life, the security and the rights of people, particularly in the southeast part in Crimea, are being threatened. So under the influence of Western countries, there are open acts of terror and violence. People are being persecuted for language and political reasons. So in this regard, I will call on the President of Russia, Mr. Putin, ask him to use the armed forces of the Russian Federation to establish the legitimacy, peace, law and order, stability and defending the people of Ukraine. Viktor Yanukovych, 1st of March 2014. So colleagues, I have an opportunity to show all of you a photo statement of the President of Ukraine.
Президенту Украины к президенту России.
A spokesman for the Russian Defense Ministry has said that media reports about an alleged Russian ultimatum made to the Ukrainian armed forces in Crimea are total nonsense. According to the Interfax news agency, their spokesperson had said that no ultimatum had been made to the Ukrainian forces. The Russian Foreign Ministry also stressed that the Black Sea Fleet units in Crimea are not interfering into the internal events of Ukrainian politics. It has also been reported that at least 700 Ukrainian soldiers and officers had defected today, announcing their readiness to defend the population of Crimea. Moreover, President Barack Obama held a high-level meeting at the White House about Ukraine with senior military and national security advisors. Secretary of State John Kerry, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew and General Martin Dempsey were among those in attendance. Russian troops without insignia were guarding the terminal in the Crimean port city of Kerch. There was no immediate sign of any new movements by Russian forces in Crimea overnight, although Ukraine's acting president said on Monday that Russia's military presence on the Black Sea Peninsula was growing. Ukrainian officials said Russia was building up armor on its side of the 4.5-kilometer wide Kerch Strait between the Crimean Peninsula and southern Russia. Russian forces shipped 3 truckloads of troops by ferry into Crimea after taking control of the border post on the Ukrainian side.
Now in a new development, over 5,500 soldiers have defected from Ukraine's military to serve the Republic of Crimea. The region's newly appointed leader said that talks with unit commanders led to the defections of soldiers to join an independent Crimean military. Now the Newsfirst International Desk is keeping a close track on the developments in Crimea and will keep our viewers fully up to date on all the developments that will unfold on this story. You can also log on to www.newsfirst.lk for more details.
The escalating situation in Ukraine has prompted the prices of crude oil and gold to increase in the world markets. Reuters reports that the situation had also affected the stock markets globally. The price of a barrel of Brent crude oil went up by $2.33 yesterday. Accordingly, the price of a barrel of crude oil settled at $112.39. Meanwhile, gold futures settled up $28.70 at $1,350.03 an ounce. Reuters reported that U.S. government bond prices rose as a result of the military exercises. Reuters stated that, however, with the troops who took part in military exercises in central and western Russia being ordered back, the prices of crude oil and gold fell sharply.
Russia and Ukraine are headed for war.
A draft resolution on Sri Lanka has been circulated at the 25th regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. The draft resolution was presented by the United States, the United Kingdom, Montenegro, Macedonia and also Mauritius. The draft resolution calls for an international inquiry in the event that the Sri Lankan government fails to hold an independent and credible investigation into alleged human rights violations.
While welcoming and acknowledging the progress made by the government of Sri Lanka in rebuilding infrastructure, demining and resettling the majority of internally displaced persons, the draft resolution notes that considerable work lies ahead in the areas of justice, reconciliation, demilitarization and the resumption of livelihoods. The draft resolution calls upon the Sri Lankan government to fulfill its public commitments, including on the devolution of political authority, which is integral to reconciliation and the full enjoyment of human rights by all members of its population. While taking note of the constructive recommendations contained in the Lessons Learnt and Reconciliation Commission report, the draft resolution reiterates that the National Plan of Action does not adequately address all of the findings and constructive recommendations of the Commission and encourages the government of Sri Lanka to broaden the scope of the plan to adequately address all elements of the Commission's report. The draft resolution calls upon the Sri Lankan government to conduct an independent and credible investigation into allegations of violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law as applicable, to hold accountable those responsible for such violations, to end continuing incidents of human rights violations, and to implement the recommendations made in the report of the High Commissioner. The draft resolution reiterates the Human Rights Council's call upon the Sri Lankan government to implement effectively the constructive recommendations of the LLRC. The draft resolution also encourages the government of Sri Lanka to provide the Northern Provincial Council and its Chief Minister with the resources and authority necessary to govern as required by the 13th Amendment of Sri Lanka's Constitution.
Meanwhile, in a written statement to the high-level segment of the 25th session of the UNHRC, South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation noted that it is important that Sri Lankans are allowed to find each other and out of this find solutions that are durable to Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, speaking to Newsfirst this evening from Geneva, Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, Ravinatha Arya-Singhe, said Sri Lanka would study the content of the resolution. He added that a substantive response would be provided at the appropriate time. Meanwhile, Minister of External Affairs, Professor G.L. Pires, who is now in Geneva, will address the 25th regular session of the UN Human Rights Council tomorrow. Newsfirst is keeping a close watch on the developments.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa says terrorism wherever in the world, in whatever form or manifestation, is a threat to the collective security of all nations. The president made this comment addressing the BIMSTEC Summit 2014.
Established in 1997, BIMSTEC leaders of member countries would discuss key issues to boost bilateral ties between the nations. Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Thailand are members of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical Economic Cooperation. Addressing the summit, President Mahinda Rajapaksa had said that Sri Lanka as an active participant is the lead country in the technology sector and the permanent chair of the Trade Negotiating Committee for a Free Trade Agreement. The President had added once finalized, the agreement will open new avenues to increase trade and economic cooperation in the region. Speaking further, President Mahinda Rajapaksa had added that as a country that had suffered from terrorism for nearly 3 decades, Sri Lanka is aware of its human and economic costs. He further said, quote, "Unfortunately, Sri Lanka's economy could not run at its true potential during those years. With the defeat of terrorism, the Sri Lankan economy has been consistently recording a growth rate of 7%, unquote. During the meeting, Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had asked about the interaction between the government and the Northern Provincial Council, to which President Rajapaksa stated that the government extends its cooperation to the NPC. The presidential spokesperson and international media unit added that both heads of states discussed matters pertaining to the fishermen of both countries and touched on other areas of mutual interest, including further strengthening the ties between India and Sri Lanka.
A jewellery shop down Stanley Tilakaratna Mawatha in Nugegoda was robbed today. The police media unit said that the robbery was committed by 2 armed men who stormed into the jewellery shop at around 3:45 this afternoon. The robbers had arrived in a motorbike and threatened the employees with their weapons and fled with 1 million rupees worth of jewellery. No arrests have been made yet. The police media unit said that 2 police teams have been deployed to conduct investigations.
Today's U report is filed by our Newsfirst U reporter Sampath Samira from Dompe.
Last evening, an accident occurred in Dompe along the Delgoda-Pugoda road when a three-wheeler travelling from Delgoda struck a stationary truck by the side of the road. Two passengers in the three-wheeler who sustained injuries were admitted to the Dompe hospital. What you are saying is the bridge connecting Pulgahawala, Delgolla and Madalagama. It is about 30 years old and has not been renovated. Therefore, it is very dangerous and the residents request the relevant authorities to fix this for them.
Newsfirst, U reporter Dinesh Adhikari, Pulgahawala City.
Environmentalists allege that there is a conspiracy afoot to prepare separate documentation for an elephant calf that was found while being kept illegally at the Kandalamawalawa in Meerigama instead of the existing distorted documentation. They said that the conspiracy was hatched after the distorted document was shown on Newsfirst last night. The Ministry of Wildlife Resource Conservation too has stated that the documentation for the elephant calf at present has many shortcomings.
Wildlife officers took over custody of an elephant calf and an adult elephant which were being kept illegally at the Kandalamawalawa in Meerigama on Friday after acting on a tip-off. Submissions were subsequently made to the additional magistrate in Attanagalla, who ordered that the calf be taken to the Attathura Sevena Elephant Sanctuary and that the adult be taken to the Pinnawala Elephant Orphanage. Environmentalists who examined swellings on the elephant calf's rump claimed that there was evidence to suspect that the calf was harassed and captured. They added that there were several faults with the permit that was presented when wildlife officers arrived to take over custody of the animals.
The Department of Wildlife Conservation has the ability to change the permit. They could say that the model form for registering the elephant calf had been filled in and submitted to them. At the same time, they are trying to highlight that the Wildlife Conservation Department has not responded to the permit that was sent and that the department failed to issue a permit. But this is a completely false story. The keeping of elephant calves illegally and trying to say that an application was made and a permit was not issued in order to justify it is not something that can be accepted before the law.
On the Newsfirst bulletin at 10 o'clock last night on Sirasa TV, Newsfirst revealed information regarding this, including that the permit had not been renewed since May 10, 2012, the information contained in it was distorted, and that the calf was being kept at a different location to the address noted on the permit.
I too saw the permit when it was shown on Sirasa. There is a problem with the elephant's height. In 2 years, it has only grown by 2 inches. I too understand that the low-level officials had fallen into trouble while exercising their duty. The doctor had distanced himself from this. It is evident that this is a bad situation. There are shortcomings. I cannot say clearly as yet as to what it is. I am looking into this. From this morning I have been looking for the two officials. I need to ascertain the truth of the matter. The Director General and the official to make inquiries are both not here.
Submissions are to be made to the Attanagalla Magistrates Court tomorrow on the two elephants that were taken into the custody of wildlife officers from the Kandalamawalawa in Meerigama.
In the case of the calf that was found in Meerigama, high-level officials are trying to say that while an application to register this calf had been submitted to the Department of Wildlife Conservation, the registration had been misplaced because of numerous reasons, including the missing elephant data book. They are trying to show that the mistake was on the part of the Wildlife Conservation Department and are trying to get the accused off scot-free.
It is my belief that the persons who carried out this operation should go before court. It will be pointless for others to go forward. I will inform our officials this evening.
Speaking at an event held in Horuna yesterday, Senior Minister Ratnasiri Wickremesinghe reiterated the need for officials to work to protect the cooperatives program.
If an official cannot give practical solutions to the people, he is useless. All of us want to take Sri Lanka towards progress, but this cannot be done with officials like these. The Commissioner of Cooperatives in the Western Province is useless. While the cooperatives were created with certain intentions back then, those intentions still prevail today. Only the engine has changed. Use the cooperatives to face the problems of the people and to overcome these problems. No matter how much politicians render assistance and no matter how many good decisions they make, if officials do not implement these decisions, then there is a problem. How are we to develop a country if this is the case? How are we to give the services that are required by the people in the villages? When the government led by His Excellency the President make plans and proposals and entrust implementation to officials and the officials undermine it, how will the country move forward?
The Janata Vimukti Peremuna's manifesto titled Our Vision was presented to the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith, today.
JVP International Affairs Secretary Somawansa Amarasinghe and party leader MP Anura Kumara Dissanayake were present at the occasion.
We believe that the country and the people must embark on a new path instead of the path that the country is currently travelling on. All religious organizations and all sections of the public have been conferred with an immense responsibility. We held extensive discussions with His Eminence on this responsibility and the steps that should be taken. Our end goal is to make this country one where equality, freedom and brotherhood have been established.
United National Party parliamentarian Ravi Karanayake raised a question in Parliament today of the funds allocated for higher education via the budget.
The government has reduced the amount of funds allocated. We are engaged in a major effort at present to spend 70% of the funds that have been allocated for universities. In truth, in 2010, the money that was spent by most universities was less than 50% of what was allocated. Are you trying to reduce the value of this because private universities are being established? Answer this question, please. That is not the case, Honourable Member. Honourable Speaker, we are expanding our universities on a large scale.
There are several rising stars that can be seen in the run-up to the Western and Southern Provincial Council polls. Among these stars are actors, actresses and singers. Let's have a look at some of the views expressed by them on the election stage.
මේ දේශපාලනකට සමහරව අහනවා මොකද මේ ගල් පිළිමේ සහ බොල් පිළිමේ අතර තියෙන වෙනස මේ කලාකාරයෝ දේශපාලනට එන ප්‍රවණතාවය මැද ඊටත් අමතරව.
In addition, others say that it is easy to engage in politics because the people here will definitely vote for actors and actresses. Some people say that Paba too contested from Gampa and that this is the district that let go of Paba.
පබාවත්තරපු දිස්ත්‍රික් එකෙන් එන්නේ මතක තියාගන්න. එතුමිය පබා වෙන්නට පුළුවන්. මම මගේ රටට ආදරේ අබා කියලා මතක තියාගන්න.
මැද මූලන්ට ගිහිල්ලා පාන් වේලක් කන්න බැරි දරුවෝ ඉන්න වෙලාවක
At a time when there are children who cannot go to Madhumulana and break bread with people, my dear mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters, the Democratic Party has brought forth people who will not only break bread with you, but who will also clean the kitchen after.
ඒව ටිකත් හොදලා දීලා යන්න පුළුවන් මිනිස්සු ටිකක් තමයි මේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී පක්ෂය බිහි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
අල්පෙනිති තුඩක් පුංචිම දෙයක් කඩදාසි කොලයක් පෑනක්.
I have not taken anything from the government, not even a small thing like a pen, a piece of paper or even a pin. I have no dynasty to protect and I do not need to build houses for people or send them on foreign excursions. I have no one to do such things for. Even now, people from various parts of the Gaul district are lovingly calling on me to become the chief minister. This is not something that I asked for. It was the people that said at first that I was suitable for the position.
ජනතාව තමයි කිව්වේ ඔබතුමිය ඒකට සුදුසුයි කියලා.
සමහර වෙලාවට මේ මා ඇමති කරන්න.
Something I remember when I see the posters of these people who want to be chief minister is what my teacher told my class and I.
දුන්නේ මලකි මලකි මහ පුදුමෙකි නෑ ඒසකි සමනලයකි. මට ඒකත්.
So when I saw these pictures, a limerick formed in my head.
ගලකි ගලකි මහ පුදුමෙකි නෑ ඒසකි ගල්ලිබ්බෙකි.
පෞගී දවස්වල ආවනේ අර නළු නිලියන් දාන ප්‍රශ්නේ.
A question that arose recently was putting forward actors and actresses. But not all actors and actresses are bad. This is a time when actors and actresses fall out when you kick a bush. It is a time when actors and actresses are created in one night. But in our time, actors and actresses were made like gods were made.
මේ සටිනේදී මම උදේ පාන්දර නැගිට්ටාම මට හිතෙනවා අද කොහොම වේද මේ මගේ
During this contest, every morning when I wake up, I wonder how it will be today. Will my work be successful? But today, I do not feel that loneliness. When I look at people's eyes, I see that in some way you understand my position because even you would have had several experiences when you were small.
ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙනවා කියලා because කුඩා කාලේ සිට ගොඩාක් අත්දැකීම් ඔබටත් ඇති කියලා මට දැනෙනවා.
හැදුවා වරායක් එන්න එකමනවක් ගුවන් තොටුපොලේ ඉගිලෙයි මොනරුරලක් කාබට් අඟල ගානේ ඇත කොමිස් උඟක් බලය තියෙන අය ගහනවා නැතුව බයක් කතිපොදි නටති සුද්දන්ගෙන් ගෙන ණයට ගෙදරට මරගාතේ පරකාසේ ලොවට බදු ගහනවා උපයන හැම සතයකට පොඩි මිනිහාගේ ජීවිතයයි කොහරද මේ කොට උඩ පොඩි මිනිහාගේ ජීවිතයයි කොට උඩට
It was disappointment for the Bangladeshis, however victory for the Pakistanis. Let me give you a quick match update on the 8th Asia Cup match between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Pakistan won the match by 3 wickets. Fawad Alam made 74 runs. Sports First, of course, will have the details later on in the news. Moving on to more local news now, UNP parliamentarian Sajid Premadasa says a great political conspiracy is afoot in the country to ensure victory at the upcoming elections.
MP Premadasa made this statement at a public rally held in Diyawara Tissamaharama today.
We are all being told that a fair election is being held this time. They are trumpeting that this government, which values democracy, protects the people and values the people's freedom, is holding a fair election. I wish to ask a question. Is it good governance to bring public sector workers from SLTV depots to Hambantota to participate in conferences? Is it ethical? I wish to ask if this is the free and fair election they are giving the people. My friends, the regime today is extremely corrupt. Today there is a major political conspiracy in our country to do whatever they want, as nasty as it may be, to ensure their victory at the election.
On to more local news. UPFA Gampha district candidate attorney-at-law Susara Dinal addressed a public rally held in the Pahala Yagura Nahena area in Ganemulla yesterday.
I wish to respectfully state to everyone here that we live in a world where the public sector is gradually shrinking and the private sector is gradually expanding. The private sector is becoming bigger. That is where the job opportunities are. That is where the job opportunities with good benefits are. That is where we must direct our youth. We must help direct our small children towards those opportunities. But has any politician come forward to provide guidance for this? What political policies have they put forward? I, who am contesting for the provincial council election, will bring forth such a program.
UNP Colombo district candidate SM Marikar charges that certain persons are attempting to secure the votes of the Muslim people and then cross over to the government.
SM Marikar made this statement at a public rally held in Nama Street yesterday. There are small factions. They are symbols of peacocks, trees, rats and geckos. They cannot form a government. They are enjoying the privileges of government and are saying that the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress is someone else's party. Their party is enjoying the privileges of being in government, and they know that at election time the Muslim people will not vote for the government because they oppose this government. So they secure the votes of the Muslim people, join the government and then betray the Muslim people who voted against the government.
The 116th media workshop organized by Newsfirst took place in Polonnaruwa today. Students were educated on news reporting, announcing as well as proficiency.
The Newsfirst team received an invitation and visited the Royal Central College early this morning. The team received a warm welcome into the premises, and the Newsfirst team began the workshop by first educating the students regarding media proficiency, both theoretically and practically. The students showed a keen interest in the new technology used in media. The second day of the Newsfirst workshop that aims to educate and inform the students of villages across the country will commence tomorrow in Polonnaruwa. I believe that Sirasa has a strong sense of social responsibility, and we believe that Sirasa is rendering a great service by visiting villages and schools such as ours that are less affluent and have little or no facilities. Sirasa has introduced a new concept of delivering news to the country, and those who do things right should not fear Sirasa.
Bangladesh stunned the world of cricket today as they managed to frustrate one of the finest bowling attacks in cricket by posting a mammoth 326 runs on the board in 50 overs against the Pakistani team.
However, some splendid batting by the Pakistanis defeat the home team by 3 wickets in a thrilling nail-biting encounter.
The home team won the toss and decided to take first lease of the wicket at the Sharaf Bangla Stadium in Mirpur.
Opener Anamul Haq and Imrul Kayes gave the power Bangladesh required to get off to a flying start, posting 150 together for the first wicket.
Kayes was dismissed for 59 runs by Mohammad Talha.
Anamul Haq, who scored 100 off 132 deliveries that comprised of 4 big hits and 6 knocks to the fence, was sent back by Said Ajmal.
Ajmal strikes again.
Haq contributed with 51 runs before he was also undone by Said Ajmal.
Mushfiqur Rahim and Shakib Al Hassan powered Bangladesh to 326 runs for the loss of 3 in their allotted 50 overs.
And he's a gonzo.
Pakistan and Sri Lanka will qualify for the finals of the 2014 Asia Cup.
And he picks up a single. He's not even raised his shot, being played by amateurs. Oh, no! He made room, and that's it. Right, how many sighters is he going to get here? Not even one. In business straight away. He'll get the single. Well played, Fawad Alam. Comeback match. There it goes. That's a shot.
And that's a wrap of your primetime news for tonight. Thank you for joining us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Nicola D'Zoiza.
And I'm Shamir Rasuldin. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. Till then, take care and good night.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.